So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world.
Time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win!
Tyree talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, gift stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine like, jet flying, son of a gun.
Taylor's gone. Jonathan Taylor. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy.
I'm never taking a back seat to anybody who don't plan on starting now.
Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
There's no doubt about it, yeah, you mean Gene Okerlund. You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, fine people. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here from high atop Brick House 1 of the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. I hope your week is going well. We've reached the halfway point on this Wednesday. Looking forward to another fun day. Dylan Sinn will join us here in a bit from the Fort Worth Journal Gazette. Fort Wayne. Always do that. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, we appreciate you. Our fine folks down on 97.7 ESPN, the Ref, always the right call down in Evansville in the southwest part of the state, up in the region on the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, WJOB, and in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it tuned right here. There's no reason to go anywhere else. They've got plenty of great stuff coming up right after Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Next year, the Brickyard has added another day of action. So that's going to run the full weekend. That has been like a 2-day deal. I think they moved one of the days over to Raceway Park or something, but they will release a schedule on what's going to go out on that with that later. National Signing Day for football, 2 weeks away. Be a big day for a lot of the area college programs, but for Indiana, it's expected to be a good day. Purdue, it's not. They've lost several commitments and things not going well there. Tommy Tuberville, if you don't remember him, former coach. Now he's a senator in Alabama, and I don't know if politics make you stupid or if it's just natural, but he's an absolute idiot. This is the problem. I do not do politics here, people, and this has nothing to do with Republican, Democrat, because I think it's the same. How do so many moronic, idiotic, uneducated people get into these? Well, I know how they get into those positions. How do those idiots get voted into these positions? I can name a list on either side that are just morons, but yet they're in high positions in government. Well, Tommy Tuberville, his he's all up on this NIL deal, which I agree with his premise of NIL, that there needs to be some kind of contract, but he's the last guy in the world to talk about it, that players, they could just break a deal, whatever, blah, 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 blah. That's kind of funny coming from a guy who did exactly that as a coach. Not only that, the greatest of all, this dude was at dinner with a recruit for, I believe it was Cincinnati. I can't remember where he was the coach at the time, but I believe he was the coach at Cincinnati. At dinner with a recruit. gets a phone call, gets up to take the call, leaves the table to go take the call, doesn't come back. You know why? Because it was an offer for another job, of which he took. This guy left a recruit at a dinner table, and whoever else was with him, left the whole party there. Never went back, said boo, bye, anything. And this is the idiot that is going to guide. He said, he uses Indiana as an example and says, well, look at Indiana. They went out and bought themselves a football team. First of all, anybody that's coached at Auburn and says something like that should just be punched right in the face. I mean, literally punched right in the face. I can't stand stupidity. Just out and out utter stupidity. And there is nobody that he exhibits stupidity more than anyone. First of all, he knows nothing about what he talks about. Indiana does not have this bastion of NIL money for football. I mean, maybe it'll get there one day. It ain't there. Have they done better? Yes. But just because they've done better doesn't mean squat. Run the numbers, people. Do you know what a team like Michigan makes per game on a football game? I think it's got to be upwards of $10 million. I mean, just take what do their tickets cost? Probably $100. I don't know. I'm not a Michigan fan, but take that times 100,000, even though they get 110. Just take it towards 100. That doesn't include parking. Michigan charges everybody. Michigan charges media parking. Media, when if I go cover of an event at Michigan football, it costs $50 for the media to park. They're a money-making machine. But regardless, that's nothing to do with Tommy Tuberville, other than his idiocy that he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to just because you have transfers. What a moron. Bob Kravitz has a great piece out on that, and look forward to talking to him tomorrow about it. But what a moron. But he does, his premise is talking about getting contracts. Well, I agree with that. I'm sick and tired of guys just being able to move from here to here to here to here. But I think that I think it should be allowable. Let's say that. It may not have to be required, but I think it should be allowable. So we'll talk more about that. College basketball last night. Obviously, some Purdue and Marquette played in what was a really good game. And Purdue does lose on the road at Marquette. And before I know all the Hoosier fans will get all excited and about that. But let me tell you, Marquette looked wicked on defense. I mean, that's the kind of defense you have to play to win. They were like spider webs all over you. Exactly. It's so funny, Ed, but Marquette is top-notch tough, and they have some good players. Offensively, I don't know how good they really will be, but they're quick. So speed and good defense, guard defense, again, the Achilles for Purdue right now. As they lose, they were down 20. They basically lost by 20, but they had a garbage bucket at the end. Purdue's first loss on the year. And again, this was not to anyone. This was to a 15th ranked Marquette team who is pretty daggone good. Hey, Trey Kaufman-Wren's doing a good job too, people. It's a different type of Purdue team, but they try to play Will Berg, the big guy. And I think that if you've got a 5 on your team, say like Umar Ballo, he ought to be able to stick that hip into him and just keep him blocked out. But that will be the key. You've got to keep him blocked out of the lane or he'll just reach over and grab it. But anyway, I was impressed with Marquette, the defense they played. It was relentless. I mean, relentless. I wouldn't want to have to play them. Number 18, Cincinnati gets an easy win over Northern Kentucky. Florida wins at home easily. Kentucky over Lipscomb. UConn over East Texas A&M. Kansas easily over UNC Wilmington. It's got some more games coming up tonight. Rutgers at home. Alabama takes on Illinois. They'll have Alabama with another crack at the Big Ten after losing to Purdue last week. We'll see what Illinois can do. Give us a taste of what Illinois is going to be like. Yeah, Evansville, they took on Ohio State, and it was a close game to the first half, but that was it. I mean, they got absolutely crushed. Ohio State's going to be good. Wisconsin's going to be good in the Big Ten this year, people. So, Carlisle on lawyer. Are you talking about, I'm assuming, you're not talking about the Pacers coach, I assume there. But Fred says Lafayette College played at Rhode Island tonight. Lil Rhodey. Maybe that's someone they can beat, Lafayette College. That sounds like a pretty small school. Lil Rhodey. Lil Rhodey may be in his last year at Rhode Island. Who knows? Surely they're tired of that by now. The obviously the latest college football playoff committee poll came out. Where did your team end up? I know where virtually everyone else ended up. Of course, number one still Oregon. The Big Ten still just controlling the upper end. I was fortunate. I did get a phone call from my daughter last night. She's an Ole Miss student. So she had just seen the latest rankings come out, and that it had Indiana hosting Ole Miss, which I had hoped for that to happen. Unfortunately, everything's going to change. So I don't even know why they do that. If it were today, why this team would host this team. Well, guess what? It's not going to be today under any scenario. So why do that? Just lay the teams out. Who's playing who is irrelevant at this moment because it's not there. I mean, that's no different than a way too early top 25, and here's who I think is, and here's your 68 team NCAA field. Well, you know what? That's 5 months early. Rudy asking, have I seen the Ryan Field renovation design? Yeah, it looks incredible. It really does. $800 million they're putting into that, it all told. So, Andrew asked if Indiana blows out Ohio State, well, do they jump over number one Oregon? Well, that's a dream scenario for most Hoosier fans. I don't know that they can blow them out, but I mean, I'm not saying they don't. You know what? It's a good question, but I don't think that they will remove if they don't remove Oregon from the number 1 spot after edging Wisconsin by 3, I don't know that what Indiana does will move them. It would move Indiana into the number 2 spot, in my opinion. More importantly, it would move them up. But hey, we've got to take a pause for the cause from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Up next, Dylan Sinn waiting in the green room to join us. And we'll be back with plenty more college football, college basketball, and whatever else we can get into right after we take a quick break.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off of your first order.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Morale in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along, joined as well by Dylan Sinn of the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Always a pleasure, and a big week. Lots of basketball going on. Talked about some games last night. Purdue traveled to Marquette in a tough game. They lose, but Marquette was no joke. I watched that game, and their defense was relentless. I mean, it was just one of those deals. It was like when you were playing pickup ball and there was that one guy, he wasn't good, but he would just play defense and just wouldn't leave you alone. And this was how they play. I mean, they were up inside of your jersey. And that defense will do them well, as Dylan is kind of got it stuck there. We'll get him back in. But yeah, that was a great game. I also watched DePaul as C.J. Gunn got some points, got some shots, played in the game, and DePaul got a win last night. So good to see them going. And Dylan, I think you're back with us.
Yeah. Yep.
Except
you were talking about Purdue Marquette. Yeah. It was a good game. I watched that as well. As you said, Marquette's defense very, very good. And the Purdue, Matt Painter has talked about it a couple times this year, is Purdue needing to kind of embrace the physicality of the game. And I don't think they did that well enough. They just weren't against that kind of defense. You need to be really strong with the ball, make really good passes, and just basically don't let that kind of thing affect what you're doing with the ball in your hand. And they didn't do that. There were too many passes into the middle, into traffic, just passes that were never going to get through, even against a defense that wasn't that good. So they didn't play well enough offensively to win that game. They didn't shoot the ball well enough. And that's, as Matt Painter said after the game, it's one of those where it shows you where you need to get better, which is bad, but also good, right? And so they'll continue to improve here. They have a very tough schedule coming up. They play Marshall, which is kind of their last mid-major test before they go on the road to San Diego for a kind of non-conference select tournament. And then they have Auburn and Texas A&M when they get back. So plenty of big games for them coming up, and they'll have a chance to really show that they've improved from this game. But yeah, not a great night on offense, especially for Purdue in that game.
Well, and their last year we know exactly what their offense was built around. Now, I'm not sure. I know that they still have, obviously still have Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith at guard, running the things at guard, and Trey Kaufman-Wren has kind of moved into Zach Edey's position, but not. It's not. It's like two different people whatsoever, because they play completely differently, obviously. But then they'll run in Will Berg, who is kind of like Edey, but not as well. He's really tall, but you've just got to keep him out of the paint. If you can keep him blocked out of the paint, I don't think there's much he can offer.
No, my contention right now is that Purdue needs to be having Caleb First at center. I think Caleb First is a better option right now than Will Berg is. I think he brings more defensively and is just kind of a little bit, he has better hands on offense, because a lot of what Purdue's offense is right now is Braden Smith going around screens and then dropping passes on short rolls for the screener, whoever it is, whether that's Trey Kaufman-Wren, who's very good at that, or whether it's Caleb First, who is good going to the rim as well. So my contention is it needs to be Caleb First at center going forward. Trey Kaufman-Wren plays power forward. And I think Will Berg can be a decent player at some point. I just don't think he provides enough right now for what they need. And so Caleb First has played well this year. I've been impressed by him. He would have had a really big game last night if he hadn't gone 4 for 8 from the foul line. So I know I sound biased because Caleb First is a Fort Wayne guy and I am from the Fort Wayne newspaper, but I think he is their best option at center right now.
Absolutely. And Indiana plays tonight. They get their last, whatever you want to call it, mid-major game in, as they'll take on UNC Greensboro before they head to the Bahamas to take a much more formidable lineup on with Louisville, Gonzaga et al. But their last game out, they played pretty well from an offensive standpoint. And I know that as a coach, they should never be satisfied. Woody wasn't really satisfied with the offense. And then, of course, Miles Rice responded to that later saying, oh, that's probably on me. It's probably more about execution. And it's great that you have a guard thinking that way, because and be able to take that constructive criticism, even though it was not directed towards him, he took it upon himself. I think that's huge for a guy that just came in, because that spells leader with capital letters to me.
No, absolutely. I think Miles Rice has done a really good job this year of kind of owning the Indiana offense, right? I think he sees himself as, I am the engine that makes this offense go. And when the things don't work, it's my fault, regardless of why they don't work, right? We should say really quick, Indiana's game is tomorrow. It's tomorrow night against UNC Greensboro.
Yeah, there you go. See, I'm always a day off. I don't know why I just wrote that down. I'm always a day off. But that's yeah. That's just life for me.
That's right. Well, now we have the correct day. But no, I do think Indiana's offense has been statistically very good. Generally speaking, this year they keep scoring in the mid 80s. I think that's probably where you want to be in some of these games. But no, I do like what Miles Rice said there, and I like that Mike Woodson was not satisfied with that performance against South Carolina. I think they can play better than that. There was a little bit of stagnation in the second half of that game, where they got the big lead and it kind of seemed like they were a little bit ready to coast, and South Carolina made a push, and then Indiana kind of had to turn it back on. And I think that's where this Indiana team is right now, is that they kind of have an on-off switch where they are capable of playing at a really high level, but they go into hibernation a little bit sometimes, where it's like, all right, we don't really have to do a whole lot of work here. I think that's where they need to they need to take that switch away. They need to be more on all the time. I think that's the next step for this team.
Absolutely. And they'll get their last game in before heading off to, I think they leave for the Bahamas on like Monday or something, but they'll be gone most of that week and returning back on Saturday, hopefully. Well, I don't know. They might get back in time for the Indiana Purdue game. I'm not sure, but that is a lot going on. We've got T-Day next week, and all the basketball tournament going on, and then of course the final football game. But there's a different one that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. That'll be coming up as well. But yeah, the college basketball season is underway, and it was hard to get a good read on the Big Ten, but now we see that, okay, Purdue looked good in beating Alabama. I'm not holding that game against them last night against them. Marquette just looked, they played defense like their hair was on fire, man. And I don't know that they can do that all the time. They were at home. But that's a blueprint to beating Purdue, is great guards that play great defense and that are good off of the dribble. And Marquette had that in spades. That Cam, I can't remember his name. He had a triple double.
Cam Jones, Jones, point guard. Yeah.
Only the second ever triple double in Marquette history, behind the one and only Dwayne Wade. He had like 15 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. And he was really scoring at the end of the game, and he was driving to the rim to get a lot of those shots. And so he was just, that's, having a guy like that is not good news for Purdue, going against a guy like that.
No, absolutely not. And it's not going to be good news for a lot of teams, right? Like you're absolutely right. I'm not holding that super hard against them. I don't think that's kind of a loss that is going to be like, oh, Purdue is going to not be very good this year. I think that's just a very, very good Marquette team that had a lot of juice for a home game against the number 6 team in the country. And I think that Purdue hung in for most of that game. They just kind of ran out of gas a little bit in the second half. I think, again, that is what is going to be the concern for Purdue this year, is that can you find the offensive firepower in the biggest moments against good defensive teams? And last night they couldn't, in part because they weren't making shots. And I think they'll make shots as the year goes on. They went 6 for 18 from 3. Marquette did a really good job of running them off the line and not letting them get 3-pointers up. And I think that is going to be a huge piece against Purdue. Is this team can shoot the lights out. Can you stop them from getting threes up? Because if they're shooting 30 threes or 35 threes in a game, you're probably not going to win that game because they're going to make a lot of them. And so I do think that that's going to be a key against this Purdue team, is run them off the line, make them shoot twos, and see if they'll miss enough of them that you can win. And Marquette certainly did that. And then on top of that, they got in passing lanes. So I think that it was a combination of those two things. Can Purdue's offense find enough in big moments?
Yeah, that and now who? Okay, what have you seen from the Big Ten? Ohio State is going to be good. They played Evansville last night. That game was close for a little bit, maybe kind of into the first half a little bit. And I laugh because it ended up Evansville only scored 30 stinking points in the whole game and got beat by 50.
Yeah, the game was 11-9. Yeah, that game was 11-9 with 7 minutes left in the first half. It was pretty
11-9. Now, part of that is Ohio State not having much offense there and waking up, but still 11-9.
Yeah. And so I think Ohio State's going to be good. I think Illinois is going to be pretty good. I like their roster construction even before the season, and I think that they've done some pretty good things to open the year. I've been impressed by Maryland, quite frankly. Derek Queen, from what I've seen, and I know this is tough for IU fans to hear, Derek Queen is a superstar. That dude is really, really, really good. And so I've been impressed by them. They played Marquette within 4 just the other night. Like, that was before Marquette played Purdue. They played Maryland, and Maryland was right there at the end of that game. So now that was on the road, so it's a little bit different, but still. And I think I've been impressed by them. Those are some of the teams that I've been impressed by. I've not super been impressed by UCLA so far. We'll see whether that changes. Same with Michigan. I like Michigan, and I think they're going to be pretty good this year, but they turn the ball over a lot. I think that's going to be a problem against some teams in the Big Ten this year.
Well, Wisconsin kind of, and then there's UCLA also. Illinois, I don't know what they're going to be like yet. So there's a lot of question marks in this league of knowing who is going to be there. People can talk about Purdue. I don't think Purdue is going to be your Big Ten champion this year. I don't know that Indiana's going to be it either. So it's going to be wild to watch this unfold, but good stuff. And we'll talk more about Indiana tomorrow as they'll get that game underway. Lots more coming up. Let's talk some football on the backside, coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios with Dylan Sinn of the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette right after this. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. No matter where and how you're listening, we appreciate you immensely. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us now, and college football taking center stage this weekend for anyone that is listening to this program for certain, as number 5 Indiana travels to Columbus to take on number 2 Ohio State, a game in which the college football world is paying great attention to. Last night, Dylan, the latest college football poll came out, of course. No change in the top 4, which was expected because there was nothing to change it, with Oregon at the top, Ohio State next, and then Texas, followed by Penn State and Indiana. Actually, there was no change in the top 5, right? It's this. I was reading an article that said there's no change in it. Yeah, I was reading something that said no change in the top 4. I'm like, what are you talking about? Let's see. But there were comments that this is in an ESPN analyst. I don't know who it was because I'm reading an article, but finally somebody noticed that they were comparing Indiana and Penn State, 4 and 5s. That was Booger McFarland. Booger McFarland has been pro-Indiana all year long, which shocks me because he's an SEC guy. But he has been pro-Indiana all year, and he says when comparing Penn State and Indiana, he brought up common opponent. He said multiple times the Nittany Lions struggled against UCLA with a 27-11 win earlier this season, and added that Indiana beat them by 29 points. But Penn State has not beaten anybody. Indiana keeps getting beat on because of their schedule, and I keep asking the same question, who the hell is Penn State beating? I mean, their best win by optics is probably a 33-30 overtime win at USC, which is in like 15th. They beat Illinois, but Illinois' shine has dropped. But it doesn't really matter because, and I told someone last night this, all that matters is this Saturday, because this Saturday answers everything we need to have as far as if Indiana wins, they're going to the Big Ten championship game. It's that simple. And at worst, they will host a college football playoff game, because if they were to make it to Indianapolis and lose against, say, Oregon, they're not dropping. You're not going to get punished for a conference championship loss, really, and especially if it's to the number 1 team in the country. So they're not going to drop out of that 5 to 8 group. There's just no way. But if they were to win, then they end up getting a bye and no home game. But that's just a scenario. And if they lose to Ohio State, they're going to drop and they're going to travel. They're going to play a road game in their first college football playoff game. To me, it's just that simple.
Yeah, I think the way that I've considered it is that if they lose within probably 10 points, if it's within 10, you're probably in. If you lose by 2 scores or more, you're probably in danger, I think, because there are going to be 5 or 6 SEC teams that the committee really wants to put in the field. Like we saw last night, Tennessee, it was out last night. I think Tennessee gets in the field eventually. So there is going to be at least one SEC team that if Indiana is in, they get left out. And like 1-2-loss SEC team, 10-2 SEC team. And I think that if you lose by a couple scores against Ohio State, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the committee to say, well, it was a nice season, but you didn't beat anybody. And the one game you played against a good team, you couldn't get it done. Right. And so I do think that Indiana needs to show something on Saturday. They don't necessarily have to win, but I do think they have to be competitive in that game late in the fourth quarter, or the committee is going to come under significant pressure to leave them out of the field. And I think we're gonna see a lot of that over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be extremely annoying for IU fans, but that's what's going to happen.
I think it would take more than a 2-score loss, personally, because Las Vegas has them as a 2-score underdog right now. So this is what they're supposed to do because Ohio State is supposed to be that good. What would the spread be if they were playing a number of other teams that are currently listed in the college football playoffs? That would be curious to see. Who else would have – is there anybody in the top let's see, Boise State, of course, they'd be probably more of a favorite, or I think the spread would be even wider. I'm trying to look at the teams to see – Notre Dame, no, they're not going to – that's probably the biggest spread they would place against anyone besides BYU and Boise State. There's just not quite the trust in Indiana by Vegas. And Vegas has been off on Indiana all year long. And then finally against Michigan, they had them as a 2-score favorite, and they don't cover. But we'll see. That's why they play the games. The offensive line has been kind of an issue for Ohio State, and it took another hit yesterday as they lose their starting center, Dylan. So, of course, Ohio State they're like a machine. They just slide the next robot into the slot. But who knows? We still got you, Dylan. I think we've lost him there for a second. But, yeah, they dealing with the offensive line has been a problem for Ohio State this year. And not a horrible problem, obviously, but it's the one knock on them today. And I agree, 5. There's no way that they're out. But I think you're back, Dylan.
Yeah, it is. The offensive line is like if you're looking for a weakness that Ohio State has, it is on the off. Not a lot of depth there. Ohio State is they've really beefed up basically every position on the team except for offensive line. The center that got hurt today, they went out and got one from Alabama. He's transferred from Alabama. So I do think that if Indiana is going to win this game, I think Mikhail Kamara and James Carpenter and CJ.
We'll certainly find out as it's going to be the biggest, not only the biggest test, this is the biggest game in Indiana football program history, folks. A program that started in the 1800s. This is, without question, the biggest game in program history for the Hoosiers. Now, it won't remain that way going forward, possibly. But not only that, this is one of the biggest games in the history of IU athletics because of the sport, because of the tradition of Indiana not having in football, but the fact that this is the biggest game ever for Indiana. And like I said, one of the biggest games in school's athletics history because of what this means. Now, I'm not going to compare this to a national championship in basketball or a national championship in anything. But I hate to, this is not against soccer because Indiana is one of the most prolific soccer programs, but this is bigger than that just because of what football means to the country as far as popularity and all that, Dylan.
No, absolutely. It's a huge opportunity for Indiana because that was the whole thing with this past week, right? Is that they gave Curt Cignetti all this money just to stay. They are going to invest and continue to invest in the football program. Ever since they fired Tom Allen last offseason and paid $15 million to buy him out, they signaled they wanted to be a serious football program, right? They want to be a program that is not considered, oh, we're at the bottom of the Big Ten and that's just how it is, that we don't really care. And they signal that those days are over and they want to be a serious football program. And this is a week that they can go out and show that they intend to do that here over the next several years. Right. And so I do think that it's an opportunity for Indiana, not only for this season, but for seasons going forward to say, hey, you're going to have to deal with us. And I think that is what they have in front of them this weekend is if you go in there and give Ohio State all they want, it's just another step toward we are a big boy football program now. And I think Indiana can show that this weekend.
Yeah, and this is important for – before I go further, I want to break – did you see the comments made by Tommy Tuberville?
I did, yeah. I thought that was really first of all, I think he's being silly.
Silly. He's an absolute moron is what he is. First of all, he coached at Auburn. And to say that, I tell you, somebody needs to just punch him in the face. He coached at Auburn. Stop. Don't act like you don't know what was going on at Auburn when you were there. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. No, he basically he said for some reason he has gotten into his head that because IU has a bunch of transfers on the team this year that they have blocked their way into being a good team. I don't really understand the logic there because most of the transfers that IU got were G5 guys who could have been who are moving up into the big time conference and could have been had by any school out of high school. Basically, I don't understand what he's talking about there, but basically he's using Indiana as a reason that the sport needs legislation and we need to do things differently. It doesn't make any sense to me. But it is really interesting that people are talking about Indiana in that way. The idea of Indiana going out there and buying a team to be successful is just wild to think about if you just step back and think about it for just a second. Because, like, this is a team that for years everyone said, oh, they don't care about football, this and that. No one invests in the football program there. It's all basketball all the time. And for a long time, that was at least partially true. And it's obviously no longer true now. And I think that people are very confused by that and a little bit scared. Tommy Tuberville, as you said, is a former Auburn coach. He is an SEC guy. He is probably one of these people who sees the sport of college football through an SEC lens. And let's be honest here. The SEC is threatened by Indiana. They just are. They see another team that they are going to have to compete with going forward. It's like, that's another team in the Big Ten that we're going to have to deal with, and they don't want to do it. And so they are doing what they can at this point to kind of knock Indiana down a peg. And that is why I think that I'm not sure if the committee is going to go along with it. I talked earlier about Indiana needing to keep it close against Ohio State. If they lose that game by a couple scores, the committee is going to be under enormous pressure from the SEC and its boosters to leave Indiana out for Ole Miss, for Tennessee, for Georgia or Alabama, right? And so I do think that there is going to be a lot of talk from the SEC people over the next couple of weeks. There already has been about Indiana not being deserving. But as you can see from what Tommy Tuberville said, they're thinking about Indiana, which is way more than they were doing before. And that is a sign of where Indiana is and where it might be going.
Yeah. And no, the thing is, he's a freaking senator. So here you have this guy who other senators think, well, this guy knows. He was a coach, but yet he is uneducated, uninformed, and he is spewing nonsense in certain regards. Now he's going to share that utter nonsense with others who don't know better. And now that's going to be the take. Now, his premise of this is the NIL and contracts and whatnot. I don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, I'm for that, not forced, but it should be an option. But regardless, I don't know. I don't understand how someone who has been involved like he has can be so ignorant as to what's going on and just to run his mouth without getting the correct information. And saying Indiana bought him a football team. Gee whiz, give me a break. Yeah, Indiana's just got NIL money rolling out. That's why they were doing it the year before and all of that. But when you have everybody else talking about why, even though they brought in the transfers, but they were all mid-major guys. They're all well coached. It's this and that and the other. He doesn't listen to any and all of that that's coming from every single place. I'd like to know where he got his information and what is the information that he got, because it's wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he, and I think a lot of people just look at Indiana being 10-0 and think something must be amiss there, right? I do think that is kind of the main thought here for a lot of people is Indiana can't be good at football. Something's weird. Something's rotten in Denmark, right? And I think that is just kind of the way a lot of people are thinking. But really, Indiana has not done anything different than a lot of other programs have done to become successful over the years. They hired a good coach. They brought in a bunch of good players, and they play a really, really well-disciplined brand of football on both sides of the ball. And they haven't, it just is on a shorter time span than for most programs when they step into from being kind of rough to being a very good team. Usually there's some years in the middle, some growing pains, right? And what the transfer portal has done is allowed Indiana to kind of skip those growing pains. They brought in a bunch of really good players right out of the box, and because Curt Cignetti was able to find a bunch of players who were undervalued at when they were coming out of high school and said, hey, do you want to play big time football? And they said, sure. No one else has asked me to play big time football. I'll come with you. And they did that. And I think that is what is confusing people, is that there wasn't this buildup. There wasn't 2 or 3 8-4 seasons first, and then this breakthrough. And I think you can get things done faster in college football now, and Indiana has found a way to do it.
Absolutely. And they've got a new contract with Curt Cignetti to quote unquote lock him up. So there's going to be no questions that Indiana is going to be Indiana for a while. Now, they're not going to win 10 straight games every year. They may not win 10 games next year, but that's because they play in a tough conference, but they're always going to be competitive. They're going to be a team that can win and can be in the position that they're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the thing, is that they are going to be something that people need to worry about. And I think that is the number one thing here, is that, yeah, they might not win 10 games next year. They might take a slight step back because frankly, they're losing a lot of one-year guys, because that was Curt Cignetti's whole thing, was I'm going to bring in a bunch of one-year guys. We're going to win now. I'm going to get excitement for the program, and we're going to build from there. And so I think next year is going to kind of be actually laying the foundation for future teams. But you have this season to kind of say, hey, this is where we can go. Now let's do it again. And I think that's kind of, it was really important for him to come in and make that statement right away.
Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Thank you, sir, as always.
Absolutely, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. We'll be back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after this. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fisher. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Speed Radio on this Wednesday. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for being back with us here from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Make sure you visit Hard Truth Distilling Company. They're in Nashville, Indiana, in Brown County. What a great time of year, but it's always a great time of year to visit Hard Truth, a full-service restaurant, cabins to stay in, restaurant or distillery tours, ATV tours across their 325-acre facility, live music, got it all. And of course, Hard Truth Distilling Company spirits like the hard road rye or the soft mash bourbons, toasted coconut rum, and cinnamon vodka. They've got tons of great items. Looking forward to Kyle Neddenriep joining us here in a bit and talk about what's coming up on the high school front, as this weekend will determine who plays in the state championship for Indiana, as we have reached the semifinals for the Hoosier State, and few upsets last week. I'm still trying to get over that Warren Central game, as they had the Chicago Bears 85-7 defensive front up there. But Center Grove able to get by them. And that just, Center Grove, buddy, that just shows they are a program that comes at you every year, year after year. And so looking forward to this weekend's matchups, as they are going to be should be some fun games. Like I said, this will determine who plays in the state championship, which is next weekend, of course, Thanksgiving weekend. What a busy day weekend that'll be. You've got Indiana Purdue that weekend as well. It just, boy, they should move the state finals, which I know that they shouldn't get penalized, but with Indiana and Purdue, they should be some way to schedule those things better. The thing is, you don't always know when the college games are going to be as far as a time. And that's why it's hard to manage that. But it would certainly be nice, because I know there's people that would like to be at both places. But you can't be. And I'm wondering, there probably won't be many Purdue fans at this Indiana Purdue game for obvious reasons. Purdue not having a good year in football, to say the least. Not only that, how bad is it going to go? But Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joining us. And Kyle, I was just talking about how big this weekend is, as we're going to find out who plays for the marbles next week for the hardware.
Oh, I thought you were talking about IU. Okay.
Well, I was talking about IU and Purdue, and that it's a shame that you're going to have IU Purdue on that Saturday, as well as, some of these games. And it would be nice if they could move them but you can't. The schedule, it's just almost impossible, because you don't know what time the college games are always going to be. And so the high schools will set their times, and it's just you hate to see that so much. You've got both state schools playing at the same time of the state championships, which not great, but you would hope that with all that holiday time, they could use that. Then you've got Black Friday, so nobody wants to have games on Black Friday, but you do anyway. So it's just wow, what a busy time those days are next week.
Yeah, my memories of the bucket game are normally it's on in the background of the Lucas Oil press box, and we're sort of halfway following along if it's worth it. And then normally the Ohio State-Michigan game too is kind of the game everybody's sort of paying attention to also. So those are kind of my memories of probably the last 20 years, pretty much, or close to it, of that. But it'll be more interest this year for sure, no matter what happens this week. But yeah, I'll be definitely, Friday's going to be, we're probably going to have teams in class 2A, 4A, and 6A. I would think we'll definitely have a team in 6A in our area here. And then 2A and 4A, we have a good possibility, I would say. So be pretty busy on Friday. Those games are all on Friday this year. And then Saturday will be 1A, 3A, and 5A this year. So, for people who are wondering what the schedule was, check with the IHSAA. They have waited at times to see what the matchups were before deciding on the day, the last probably since around COVID time. But check with Jason Willie, and that'll be the case for next week. So, but we got to get through Friday first, which there's a lot of great, there's some great semi-state matchup games this Friday.
Yeah. What do you see? I'm looking at the Class A game right there. You've got South Adams at North Judson undefeated, but an 8-5 South Adams team with a chance to make it to the state finals. So you're saying there's a chance?
Well, they play a tougher schedule, and that their route has gone through Adams Central the last few years, and Adams Central is now up in 2A. Adams Central's made it to Lucas Oil the last 3 years and lost to Lutheran every time. Now both those teams are still alive in 2A, so you could see that same matchup in the 2A game, which is kind of crazy. But that sort of opened the door. South Adams plays, they play a lot of bigger, they play a lot of 2A teams. So their record's a little bit indicative of the schedule they play. And then North Judson, though, North Judson's been really good the last few years too, and they have not been able to get through Adams Central. So this may be their chance to do that. And they're a really strong, running team. They have 3 players over 1,000 yards. So that'll be. I think North Judson probably will get through this year, and then they either play South Putnam or Providence, which should be a great game on the south side of the 1A bracket too.
And the old Providence Pioneers from down in Clarksville last week. No last-second heroics from Bobby Plump as they knock off Milan to reach this level. They're 12-0, man, taking on a South Putnam team at 11-2.
Yeah, and South Putnam will be, they play a tough schedule too. So I think that'll be a really good game. I mean, that's a pretty good drive South Putnam has to make down to Providence. These semi-state games sometimes I think is more, sometimes the home field advantage is greater because the distance you have to travel to play these games. I know some people say, why are these semi-state games played at home sites? I like it this way. I think it's I think a home crowd and a home stadium, even though it's sort of random, it'd be great if it was sort of, you earned it by, seating, but we're not there yet. But I like it at home sites. I prefer it that way. It is a long drive, and I think somewhat of an advantage, though. And in this case, Providence would probably be the better seed anyway. So it is their advantage. And, yeah, this should be – I could see either team winning this game. South Putnam, they ran all over Sheridan last week. Their sophomore running back, Ty Benton, had 326 rushing yards in that game. So Providence will have a challenge on its hands here. But, yeah, they were ready. They were ready for the Milan Miracle last week, and they were able to get over the top.
Also, let's see. That was Class A. I'm trying to go kind of in order, if possible. Adams Central, Andrean, the Fighting Dan Dockages going for a shot at in Indianapolis.
Yeah, that Andrean, another team that their record doesn't really match how good they are. Their traditional power play a lot tougher schedule than most 2A teams do. That's a really interesting game to me. The Adams Central obviously playing up in 2A, sort of above their punching weight, I would say. But they've had so much success these last few years that their wing T offense they run is really hard to stop. Andrean, probably the more talented team. They've got a receiver, James Finley, who's over 800 yards on the season. And like I said, they've done this a lot. They won the 2021 title in Class 2A when Drake Bowen was there, and then made it back the next year. Drake Bowen was a senior and won Mr. Football. So a lot of history with that Andrean team.
I'm loving the matchup in the 3A with Batesville and Heritage Hills, mainly because it is literally this is going to be the champion of Southern Indiana. And by Southern Indiana, I mean from Indianapolis down. Heritage Hills, of course, down in Santa Claus, Batesville over towards Cincinnati. All I can ever think about is the casket company. All you see those daggone trucks going up and down the road wherever you are. But, man, Heritage Hills is just – they have got a machine-like team this year.
Yeah, they may have got through the hardest part of that bracket. Their sectional was dynamite. They beat Evansville Memorial, who was ranked number 1. Heritage Hills is ranked number 2. Gibson Southern also was in that sectional. They were a top 10 team. Batesville, not a team with a ton of history of success, but they won a wild one over Tri-West last week. I thought Tri-West might be able to get through there, but they lost. Their best player went out with an ACL injury, and that's always tough to see. And he was a senior the previous week for Tri-West, Malachi Walden. But, first time since 1986, Batesville's a regional champ. Heritage Hill's kind of the other side. They're the traditional power. And Jet Goldsberry, great name, by the way, for Heritage Hills. He's over 1,500 passing yards and almost 1,500 rushing yards. So he's having a great year. Heritage Hills was there. They played in the 3A title game last year against Chittard. So kind of their chance maybe to get through and win it for the first time and since 2000. So would be a pretty good feat for Heritage Hills. I think they're the best of the 4 teams remaining in 3A.
And let's see, whatever. I'm trying to. There's so many games going on. Of course, there's what 12 games all told. I guess, is that right?
Yeah, 12 games. Probably, the 6A games will be Crown Point and Westfield and Brownsburg and Center Grove, which is a great couple semi-state games.
I cannot get over. Boy, I'm glad I would have bet on Warren Central just because they had the Chicago Bears 85 defense. I was shocked to see that they lost. I'm like, how in the world does a team that has Jeremy Finch, the 2026 top player in the state, Tyrone Burris, one of the top players in the state, Damian Shanklin going to LSU, one of the top players in the state, all on the same defensive line, no less. And the Dungy kid, is he related to Tony?
I don't believe so. I think I've asked that before, but I don't.
They got a Dungy kid just because his last name's Dungy. They got a Dungy on there too. And hey, you got to give it to Center Grove. Man, doesn't matter. They were able to come out with a win.
Yeah, they got off to a good start. I mean, that was kind of the key to that game, and then they just kind of hung on. And the problem for Warren all year has not been defense; it's been offense, and they just have not. We're not able this year to kind of take advantage of that great defense that they had. And if you look at the numbers of that game, really, Center Grove only had 203 yards of offense. I mean, that should be, allowing a team that few yards. I mean, you think you would win, but they gave up 2 long punt returns. Drake McClure got a 76-yard punt return for a touchdown and also had a 59-yarder to set up another score. So those are huge plays in a game. They turned the ball over 3 times. I thought this might be the year Warren was able to get through and get back to their tradition. And this was a Center Grove team that was definitely, they were beatable. They're 8-4 this year. They play a different schedule now, but covering the LN Center Grove game a few weeks ago, Center Grove really had trouble stopping LN. And I was like, man, that's going to be, it's going to be tough if they run into a LN again, which I thought would be this weekend. But Brownsburg had other ideas and knocked off Lawrence North. And that was a crazy game too. But Brownsburg able to win in the final seconds, and number 1 LN is out. And now the door's open for one of these teams, Brownsburg and Center Grove. It's interesting. They haven't played each other since 1990, which you would not expect that. But it's interesting. Probably speaks to Brownsburg not making this type of a tournament run very often. But yeah, it's going to be a fun game. Center Grove's so used to winning these types of games over the years, and Brownsburg has not been here very often. So that may not matter, but kind of a contrast in tradition and history a little bit.
Bloomington South back in it as well, as they will host Decatur Central in 5A play, and for a shot to go to the state finals as well.
Yeah, Bloomington South. This matchup was the same last year in Decatur. It was probably a more high profile game a little bit because Bloomington South had a very high powered offense and a lot of seniors on that team. This may be a little bit more unexpected for Bloomington South. I think a lot of people probably expected Bloomington North to be here. Or even Castle, which Bloomington South beat last week in the regional. So Duncan Combs had a really good game last week for Bloomington South, had 250 passing yards, and Braylon Townsend, big game on the ground, had almost 200 rushing. But I like this Decatur team. Decatur made it last year to the state finals and lost to Fort Wayne Snyder, and I think very motivated team to get back to that point and win it this year. So I think Decatur, they do have to go on the road, but I think they're going to be in position to win this game on Friday.
Well, looking forward to it, man. I know you're going to be a busy guy this weekend keeping up with all of it because we didn't even touch on all of the games because there's plenty more. But to do so, just make sure you're giving Kyle Neddenriep a follow and along with be a subscriber to the Indy Star. Keep local papers alive, and no one covers the high school sports in this state better than Kyle Neddenriep. Appreciate you, my friend.
You bet. Thanks, Jim.
You betcha, as always. Hey, we've got more coming up, including the man, Rick Bozich. He joins us next after this break from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fisher. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Marie Island, Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday, and you know what that means. We get to spend the time with the captain, Rick Bozich. How are you from WDRB.com? How are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
Well, I'm great. You have to be doing good. Baseball season's over, so you don't have that to worry about right up through the World Series, and plenty of others to talk about. As college basketball is underway, and we've got football deep into deepness, and we'll talk about all of it. But basketball, I was talking earlier. I watched the Marquette Purdue game last night, but Marquette, they play defense like their life depended on it, man. If you could get defense out of a team like that every game and have the offense to go with it, that is a Final Four team. They don't have the offense to go with it, unfortunately, I don't think. But boy, they played defense wonderfully.
Yeah, Shaka Smart has found a home there at Marquette. You know, he was good at VCU, and he went to Texas, and it didn't work out. He got a lot of hype when he went in there, and he made the tournament, but he never really made any deep runs. But now Marquette seems to be a place where he's thriving. But he'll be challenged there because he's in the league with UConn, and he's in the league with Rick Pitino and a couple of other solid programs. But you're right, they do get after you on defense every year. They really pressure the ball hard, and they shut down Purdue when they needed to, especially in the second half. And I didn't see all of the game because I was at the Louisville game last night. But yeah, Marquette's I think they're a top 15 team. I don't think they're a top 10 team, but they're a top 15 or 20 team.
And it also showed what, again, to me, while Purdue is going to be a good team, or is a good team, and they're going to be a tough out every night, they're definitely not as formidable right now without Zach Edey, because they've got Trey Kaufman-Renn, who brings a difference to him filling that spot, but it's not the dominating style, and they don't have a a dominant person, especially if you get someone that can defend like Marquette did, like UConn did. That's where Purdue gets a little shaky.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Edey was a tremendous security blanket for Purdue whenever they really needed to get a basket or quiet a crowd on the road. If you threw it to Edey, there was, 65, 70% chance he would get you one. He would get opposing teams in foul trouble, which was a big deal. He was a really good defender, and he's showing now in the NBA, really, where he's been one of the top 2 or 3 rookies in the league, that, he's more than just a big guy. He actually is a basketball player. So, replacing him is one thing, and Trey Coppin-Wren, as you mentioned, the kid from Silver Creek, is good, but he has a different skill set than Zach Edey. And 2, the rest of the guys have to learn how to play without him. And Braden Smith's been pretty good, but a few of the other ones haven't made the adjustment yet. And they've got a lot of young guys. So, I mean, Purdue will be a tournament team, but I don't think they're the lock to win the Big Ten that they've been the last couple of years.
And fortunately, I have YouTube TV, so I was watching like 3 or 4 games at once. One of those was the DePaul East Illinois game, and you see a couple familiar names with CJ Gunn on the DePaul roster. I saw him play, and also Cooper Jacoby, who is from Silver Creek, I assume, because he's from Sellersburg, playing for Eastern Illinois.
He was Coppin-Wren's teammate when they won those back-to-back state titles. He started his career at Toledo, and he actually played quite a bit as a freshman. I don't know how he ended up at Eastern Illinois, but yeah, he's there. And DePaul also has J.J. Traynor, who played 4 years at Louisville.
A lot of connections. And then, well, what was I forget what the other game I was watching, but
excuse me.
Daggone it. I can't remember. Oh, well.
Who won? DePaul win or Eastern Illinois?
DePaul pulled it out.
Eastern Illinois played everybody. They played IU, they played Northwestern, they played Indiana, and now they played DePaul.
Get those checks, man. I don't know that DePaul's much of a check, but maybe. You never know.
There's no overhead. You could probably bus up the day of the game and not even stay in a hotel.
Well, the funny thing is, I also noticed, I was watching Northwestern. They play, I forget who they played, but Montana State. And they either went to overtime or right to it because they barely won. But I noticed that I'm like, so there's a game in Evanston at Northwestern and a game in the Rosemont. Was DePaul still playing the Rosemont area?
No, they play really in downtown Chicago now. They have a Wintrust Arena, which is a nice facility, but they don't draw very good crowds.
No, they do not. Because I go, man, you could take both of those crowds, add them together, and that wouldn't beat a high school game in Indiana. In the third biggest city in America, no less.
Yeah, it's been a problem now for DePaul for 30 years since I think the last team they had really that was any good was that Quentin Richardson team when Pat Kennedy was the coach, and that's 2 or 3 coaches ago. But yeah, they're struggling to get it going. They brought in Chris Holtman from Ohio State. I saw they won that game last night against Eastern Illinois by 9. I'm sorry, they pulled it out at the end. And CJ Gunn had 7 points in 14 minutes. He took 6 threes and made 1. So the shooting eyes still not there for Mr. Gunn.
Yeah, and that's. Wish it could go better for him, but he's probably in as good a place as he can be as far as schools go. Yep. Let's see. Indiana, of course, coming up tomorrow night, their final game before they head off to the Bahamas to take on Louisville before they'll play whomever else they play, whether it's Gonzaga after that. But we'll see them in action tomorrow night, and it'll be interesting to see again if they come out ready to play, if they can play 2 halves, if they do pretty much what they did the other night with better defense, especially on the 3-point shooters. That's another thing I got from watching Marquette and Purdue last night was you have to play defense like Marquette plays defense, because if you do that, you are going to make life hell for whomever you're playing. And if you can play defense like that and have the offensive pieces that an Indiana does have, they could be very successful. But those are ifs.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a mentality. It's got to be cooked into the culture. It's got to be demanded by the coaching staff, and it's got to be demanded inside the locker room of players holding each other accountable. They play Greensboro tomorrow, right? And that's probably the second best team they played this year, better than the two they played before they got against South Carolina. And I agree with you. They need to come out and do what they did against Eastern. Well, was Eastern Illinois the game they were behind at halftime and came back and won the second half? Yeah,
Yep.
They need to play 2 good halves, and they need to win these games. I don't know if they think this or not, but I strongly believe it is when you're favored to win games by the computer formulas by X amount of points, you need to hit that margin or greater.
Yeah.
It matters. It matters. It affects your computer rankings, and people look at that stuff who are on the selection committee. And we saw last year a number of teams, especially in the Big 12, that did that. And you can't have, I've said this before, you can't have the kind of performances they had last year against Florida Gulf Coast and Army and Wright State to start the season. If you're supposed to win a game, you should win it with authority. And that's what Louisville did last night. They played Bellarmine. I think they were favored by 29.5, and they end up winning 100-68. So Louisville will be an interesting test for Indiana next week. Louisville now, just note for your listeners, they've suffered 2 significant injuries. One of their starters, the power forward, broke his arm. He won't be playing when they play IU. And then their backup point guard, Corin Johnson, didn't play last night. He has a shoulder injury, but Pat Kelsey said he wasn't sure if he'd be back. Louisville actually plays Winthrop Friday night, and then they go to the Bahamas.
Yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to is if Louisville has any success shooting the 3 ball, how Indiana is able to deal with that, because that's going to be the story to that game. Louisville's not going to beat Indiana on the inside. I don't think that they're going to. If they beat them, it's going to be with the 3-point shot.
They've made at least 10 threes in all 3 of their games so far. They're not shooting a outrageously great percentage. Let's see, it's at 30%, so it's not really very good. Last night they had one of their better 3-point shooting nights. They went 12 for 35, but they shot 35 threes against Bellarmine. Against Tennessee, they shot 39 threes, and in the first game against Morehead State, they shot 36 threes. So you can pretty much write it down. They're going to shoot more than 33-point shots, and if they happen to be hot and you don't guard them, they'll make you pay. So it'll be interesting. Tennessee did a really good job of pressuring them on the line, and we'll see how Indiana handles that.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And I'm wondering, I was talking to Dylan Sinn earlier, I still don't know who is going to be the Big Ten. The Big Ten is still a surprise.
I agree.
Indiana's going to be Indiana. What we've seen, Purdue, we know that they're going to be good, but they're not going to be the dominant team. Maryland is looking good. Wisconsin is looking good. UCLA will probably be good. And I don't know about Illinois yet, but that's a lot right there without even knowing anything.
I mean, Michigan's had some nice wins under Dusty May. Oregon will be tough because Indiana has to play them out there. And the team that I've watched once or twice, and I think they're going to be tough to beat, is Penn State. That guy's a good coach. His best player, Ace Baldwin, is back, and they've won all of their games by at least 20 points. And one of those wins was at Virginia, no, it was on a neutral court against Virginia Tech. So that's a team I wouldn't write off in the Big Ten. I think they're going to be pretty good. So the only team in the Big Ten so far that doesn't seem to be that great is Minnesota. And they're 4-1, but they've had a lot of close calls against some bad teams. Barely beat Yale, barely beat Nebraska, Omaha. So we'll see.
Well, Northwestern struggled against Montana State at home last night. So
and they went overtime the game before that against Eastern Illinois. But, we've been around long enough to know that Indiana going to Northwestern in recent years hasn't been much fun. At least Boo Booey isn't there anymore.
Boo Booey. Best. I'm going to miss getting to say that. Boo Booey. getting to say that name, man. I may have to.
He's probably in the G League, if I had to guess.
Probably so. We'll take a quick break. That way we can come back and start talking about football as the college football latest poll is out. We can talk about the moron that is Tommy Tuberville and everything else. We've got Rick Bozich with us.
Forget Joey Galloway.
Joey Galloway. Oh, Mr. Ohio State. I didn't see what he said, but I can't wait to hear it when we come back.
All right.
Here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios with Rick Bozich right after this. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing, or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition, or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off of your first order. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday, joined now by Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. We did get to hear from Ryan Day yesterday, and coaches are funny. Sometimes and there's no one that says up there that Kurt Signetti about sometimes sliding something in. You're like, is that a dig? Is that not a dig? I think with UCLA, he talked about Pretty Boys or something before he went out there. And there's been a few others, but someone asked Ryan Day yesterday what he is what jumps off the page. And the question may be on here, I can't remember. But what jumps off the page to him with this team that was 3-9 last year, and how they are this year. And then the second question comes, and I'm like, dude, you're confusing Kurt Signetti with Howard Schnellenberger.
Tom Tiberi, WBNS.
Coach, I don't know how many of us would have predicted a top 5 matchup with Indiana being 10-0 when you look at them, and this is a team that was 3-9 a year ago, what jumps out as you look at this football team?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I don't think their players get enough credit. I think that, coaches have done a great job, and they've done a nice job this year. But the players are the ones who play, and they have good players, and they've done a nice job of changing their roster or upgrading their roster in certain areas. I think they play very hard. They are well coached. They take care of the football. They cause turnovers. They play well in special teams, and their best players play on special teams. Like, for instance, their top running back is back there as a protector in the punt. And which does a lot of things. Like it shows that special teams are important to them, but it also makes you be aware that, hey, there's a running back there when you're punting. So I think there's a lot of things they've done, but you can see that they've been very successful in everything they've been looking to do in terms of installing a culture, in all three phases. And so it's going to be a great challenge for our team. We're looking forward to it.
Their coach is very confident. He has said some things, collision course with greatness and all this, said some things. Do you pay any attention to any of that stuff that's been said?
Well, everybody has to motivate their team, and certainly when you feel like you have good players, then it certainly gives you confidence. And I think he's done a great job of instilling that. But ultimately, this is always about us, in our preparation. Every week we try to keep the same routine and focus on us. Now, you got to know your opponent. It's very, very important to know their tendencies and what they do. But in order to be consistent week in and week out, you got to keep the same routine, and that's about our routine. That's about our focus and what we need to do, and all the different core values that we believe in terms of winning games, and that'll be the same this week.
Two things there. I don't know if that was an intended or if he was just being complimentary to the players. But first, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, is Cignetti getting too much attention as opposed to the players? And he is getting a lot of attention, but who else are they going to shine the light on? But anyway, the second one cracked me up. So I'm like, he said a lot of things. He is a quote machine, but he has never, I do not recall him mentioning being on a collision course with anything. That guy sounded old enough that he was around when I was there covering Howard Schnellenberger when Louisville is on a collision course with a national championship. The only variable is time. One of the great all-time quotes, but it's wasn't a lot about the game in that presser.
No, not in those two questions. I think that Day is just trying to be a good politician and spread the credit to different players in the team, and not going to give Indiana anything at all for a locker room item. And you're right, the second part, I've never heard Kurt Cignetti say they were on a collision course with anything. He said plenty of things even from before he even got to Bloomington, when he stopped off in Lucas Oil Stadium for that first interview with the Big Ten Network. He's been consistent in his messaging all the way through. And, as I think we've talked about on here for a long, long time, that's what Indiana needed. That's what Indiana had to have. When you had a program that had underachieved for as many years as Indiana has, you have to have somebody in there who comes in and shocks the system and does things differently and messages differently, and gets not only players believing differently, but administrators at the school and the fan base thinking differently. And he's done that, and he's done an incredible job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now he gets a chance to really step up, because this weekend is going to be, not only it's the biggest football game in the history of the IU football program. I think it's bigger than anything that happened in '67. Then that was the biggest, but this takes it to another level, because if they win this game, first of all, the enormity of the game itself, a top 5 matchup on the road, it will put you, in essence, into the Big Ten championship game, which is gigantic. But not only that, it locks you into, in my opinion, at worst, hosting a college football playoff game, because if you're go in, and they'll be number 2 if they were to beat Ohio State. If you lose to Oregon, you're not going anywhere. You'll drop out of the top 4, but you're going to be in that 5 to 8 category still. And it's just the enormity is there. And it's going, plus Ohio State has just lost another offensive lineman. So there's a lot of things going into this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the biggest football game in IU history. And I do go back to 67, and I mean, you can't even compare the eras. Back then, maybe 3 IU football games were on TV. I don't think I lived in, the Chicago area. I think I might have seen one. The game that they beat Purdue to win the Big Ten title, I listened to on the radio. It wasn't on TV. So this is on national TV with Fox doing their pregame show from there, with ESPN doing their pregame show from there. It's all, national people are lining up on both sides of the equation to give their thoughts on IU football and how deserving they are to be in this moment. Story after story is being written about Kurt Signetti. He just got an 8-year, $72 million contract. You can go on and on. It's by far the biggest moment in IU football history, and the world of college football will be watching. Some of the games early in the year when game day was there, was at Washington, I think it was, or the big game against Nebraska, which might have been when, I don't remember now, where Fox Sports was there. But they were big games too, but the only people who were watching might have been, Big Ten fans or, regional fans. This is a game that people around the country will be paying attention to because they want to see if Indiana, and they'll form their opinion on whether they think Indiana's worthy of being in the playoff on what happens in this game.
Yeah, you've got Fox Big Noon Kickoff there, ESPN's College Game Day there. Right. I mean, the college football world.
We're going to be there. I mean, don't forget us.
Oh, for WDRB's. Do you know the
you too. Aren't you going to be there?
Oh, heck yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're going to be there.
Post-game show from there, from the Horseshoe. The first game I ever saw at the Shoe was a Louisville, Ohio State game.
I was there for that game.
I was at WOKY back then, the CBS station in Louisville, as Putz.
Is that the game when Louisville went for a 2-point conversion to win and didn't get it?
Yeah. Yep. Howard Schellenberger starting it.
You know who the quarterbacks were in that game, right?
No.
Jeff Brom for Louisville, Kirk Herbstreit for Ohio State.
I thought Herbstreit was a running back. Wow.
No, he was the quarterback.
That is amazing. Wow. They used to have a track around the football field.
Yeah, they did.
I worked a USFL game once there, and had to be there in the morning, and there was nobody there but me. I ran around that track, like ran a mile or something that's no longer there. So I'm like going, yep, I can say I did something a lot of other people didn't do. But yeah, this is going to be a huge game. What did Mr. Ohio State ESPN's, I forget his name.
Joey Galloway, the wide receiver.
What Mr. Joey Galloway have to say?
Well, he had an insight that really nobody else has shared, but he was willing to share it. He suggested that Indiana sit Curtis Rourke for the Ohio State game and not risk him for the injury the way Florida State played Jordan Travis last year, and he got hurt and it ruined their season. Sit him against Ohio State, take the loss, and then beat Purdue, and you'll still get in the playoffs. Say that his thumb isn't really ready to go yet, and not play him in the game.
Well, just to even suggest something so I don't even know the word to use there. First of all, if they get beat by 3 touchdowns, not sure that they go to the CFP. I mean, there's going to be a lot of noise if that were to happen, if they got beat down. But if they got beat down without Curtis Rourke, I don't know, but that's dumb. That is just takes all the sport out of sporting event.
What's strange is I think Joey Galloway went to Ohio State.
No, he did. He's Mr. Ohio State.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But who didn't? Of course, you got, yeah.
Now, I don't think he made the same comment about Will Howard. Why wouldn't that apply to Ohio State too? Why wouldn't they sit? I guess that they've already got one loss, so they can't afford another one. But
true that. And I wonder, I had a premonition. I'm like, oh, wow, what if Will Howard gets knocked out of the game early?
Yeah.
I don't know who their
You know,
backup quarterback is, but
I'm sure it's another 5-star, so we're not worried about him.
of course,
You know, I would imagine Oregon. I mean, they're already in the Big Ten championship game. They need to sit Dylan Gabriel.
absolutely. He's got to sit out. Forget about Heisman Trophy and all of that stuff.
What's funny is Mike Schumann pointed it out on Twitter that Joe Galloway made that statement like 20 minutes or half an hour after Curtis Rourke was made available for IU to represent the team in the press conference for the game. So he's not sitting out.
No, not. Indiana is going to Columbus with one goal, one mission, and that is to put all of these naysayers talk away because they're tired of hearing it. I guarantee you, anybody can talk about all the bulletin board material from Kurt Cignetti they want. Doesn't matter. Indiana will go in there with the biggest chip on their shoulder yet because nobody thinks that they can win this game. Nobody. Vegas has them as a 12.5 point underdog. Nobody thinks that Indiana can win it, will win it. I'm not one of those people, but that's what's going to make this game so intriguing, especially if it is a close game.
This is the way I look at it. I mean, Indiana is the team right now taking all the barbs, but I think you could name a bunch of teams if they were in a similar position, Minnesota or Kansas or West Virginia or, SMU, whoever. If they were in a similar position, they'd be taking similar barbs. College football, at its essence, is a snobby club. And there's about 10 or 15 programs that think that they rule the sport. And when they're good, they deserve to be in the playoff. And anybody else who's sort of an outsider, when they try and get inside the club, they're denigrated and they're doubted and they're questioned and they're criticized. And they've got to overachieve to make it to where everybody else is. And that's what we're seeing right now. And we're seeing a lot of people, in my opinion, who probably never watched Indiana play, certainly until the last couple of games. They saw the Michigan game and maybe only the second half of the Michigan game and said, I'm not impressed by that. Instead of actually going back and looking at the Washington game or looking at the Nebraska game or looking at the UCLA game. Those great teams know, but they're formidable teams that have a number of decent wins, and Indiana dominated those teams. And so it's really it's snobbery, and it's people talking about a team that they really haven't watched play and taking the time to look at how they played all year. That's what I think.
Yeah, of course it is, because no one paid any attention to them for the first half of the season hardly, and then all of a sudden it kept going and kept going and kept going, and then they haven't played anybody because it's Indiana. Well, Penn State hasn't either, and now finally there's some conversation. Booger McFarland, of all people, Mr. SEC, has been pro Indiana all year long, and he brought up the Penn State thing. He goes, if you want to compare them two, he goes, let's compare head to head. They both played UCLA. Penn State struggled. Indiana beat the heck out of them in the beginning of the year even. So I do think Indiana's better than Penn State. I don't know where they are with Ohio State, and we'll find out on Saturday. That's the great thing.
Well, I mean, if you're just being logical that Ohio State is probably better, they should be better, and they should be favored. They're playing at home. All the recruiting or talent measuring people, whether it was high school star system, transfer portal star system, NFL draft possibilities, all the way down the line will tell you Ohio State has better players, right? They've got a former NFL coach as their offensive coordinator. Indiana has a guy who came from James Madison, Mike Shanahan versus Chip Kelly. There's a mismatch. Ohio State has a NIL payroll of over 20 million. They're going to have 90-some thousand people in a home game. They should be favored, right? I mean, they've got every advantage in the world.
Yep, and they are. Quickly, how about Tommy Tuberville? He just an absolute moron. I don't do politics. I said that earlier, and I'm like, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I said, there are idiots and morons in both, and how they get to these positions, I don't know, because of all people that should be the most educated on things like this, this idiot doesn't know jack squat about what he's talking about. And of all people, a guy that was at Auburn is going to talk about anything. Just stop talking right there. And now I do agree with it would be great to get athletes to be able to sign multi-year deals, because I hate the other thing, or the being able to just go wherever you will. But he used Indiana as an example of having gone out and bought themselves a football team. And it's like, yeah, they bought all of those guys from Old Dominion and James Madison and
Ohio University,
and the second tier running back from Wake Forest. And this is the guy that got up from a dinner table with a recruit and left to take a phone call and never came back because he took another job and left to break a contract.
Well, I mean, I know one player they didn't buy about 10 or 15 years ago was Cam Newton, who brought Auburn a national championship when buying players wasn't allowed. So I'll start off by saying that. And secondly, all these guys that were out there were available for anybody to recruit. And I'm sure Auburn has bought whatever team they had. They just didn't do a very good job of figuring out who they were buying.
Absolutely. What's up next for you, brother?
Just watching sports the next couple nights and heading to Columbus. I'll be there this weekend. I haven't been there, just like you, since the Brom Herb Street game. I'm dreading the traffic, but I'm looking forward to the game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. It should be
Are you going Friday night, or are you just going all day on Saturday?
I am actually going up Friday night this time. Just
all the way to Columbus?
Just to try to beat that and be there and start getting stuff ready, because it's going to be it's a noon game. So and you've got all that stuff that's going on. You're going to have to deal with college game day and big noon kickoff, and I'm not going to be messing with that. There's too much, but it's just going to be a gigantic day. And Ohio State people are still complaining about the noon game part of it. That's like one of their biggest issues.
Again, that's the snobbery. The teams that are really good thinks that they're the only ones that should be good, and that they should decide when their game should be played. Their worthiness is ranked above all others.
Yep, and looking forward to it, brother. I appreciate you as always, and I look forward to seeing you in Columbus.
See you there, Jim.
Absolutely. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and it is always a pleasure to have the captain with us. He is a good one. So looking forward. Don't forget a post-game show, of course, after the game on Saturday. We'll be there and bringing to you all the action of what went down. And also don't forget, you can go to isbradio.itemorder.com. That's isbradio.itemorder.com. And get your welcome to the SIG 10 shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. Proceeds will go to the Bloomington Boys and Girls Club. So not trying to make money on these, but they're a great. It's a great design. Jamie Hoyd did a great job with this, and shout out to him again. But go to isbradio.itemorder.com and pick up. You can pick up other things as well, but the SIG 10 stuff is there, ready to go. So go get yourself one. Hope you're going to have a great rest of your day. And we're looking forward to being back tomorrow to do this all again. We are loaded once again. Bob Kravitz will join us, of course. Coach Shannon. We're going to preview this Ohio State game along with the normal crew on Thursdays. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I hope you have a great day. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.